Okay, picking up where we left off at, we have the square root of 25 is equal to the square root of b squared. So 5 is equal to b. Now, we have what our b is equal to. So this is what we need to do. We need to take one of these two ordered pairs and take this equation and then solve for a. So let's just take the second one because it has smaller numbers. So we could have y is equal to ab to the x. And then our y is 15. Our a we don't know. Our b is 5. And our x here is 1. So we'll divide each side by 5 to the first. And that will give us 3 is equal to a. So our equation is y is equal to 3 times 5 to the x. Okay, so now we have our equation. Now we can substitute in the values. When we substitute in 0 for x, that will give us 3. When we substitute in 2 for x, that will give us 75. When we substitute in 4 for x, that will give us 1,875. Now listen, I'm not going to go through this process 2 more times, but you get the gist of this. If you use this process for the next 2 values here, you would get the correct answer. So all you have to do is follow this process and you will get the correct answer for h of x and also k of x. And what I would do also, I will write down the formulas for you. So for h of x, the formula is, I'll write it here, h of x is equal to 5 times 3 to the x. And then for k of x, the formula is a negative 128 times 1/2 to the x. So it's negative 128 times 1/2 to the x. And when we substitute in our values, we have 5, 45, and 135. Then we will have negative 128, negative 64, and also negative 16. Now again, the same process you use to get the g of x formula, you'll use for h of x and also for k of x. Now, we scroll down here to number 13. It says, suppose Wimbledon has 128 participants at the start. Each day, half of the participants lose and are out of the tournament. Create an exponential model y equals f of t for this data where t is the number of days in the tournament. So now, our usual equation is y equals ab to the x. But we will have f of t is equal to ab to the t. Now remember, our b typically represents our our slope. So if they're telling us that half of the participants lose and are out of the tournament, so we have f of t is equal to a times 1/2 to the t power. Now also we have this here, our y-intercept. This is what we started with, the 128, so that is our a. So we have f of t is equal to 128 times 1/2 to the t power. And we're done. Now, we scroll to problem number 14. It says some values of an invertible function f of t are given in the table below. Find the following. Now f of 8, that's when x is 8. So then our y is 2. Now they tell us to find the inverse of 4. So first of all, we go where f of x is 4, and we will write down its x value, which is 7. And that is the final answer. Now we move on to problem 15. It says find the inverse function by hand. We have f of x is equal to 3x minus 2 over 7. So to find the inverse, first let's change this f of x to y. That'll make it a little easier to work with initially. So we're going to switch the x's and y. So it'll be x equals 3y minus 2 equals 7. Now we multiply each side by 7. And that will give us 7x is equal to 3x minus 2. I mean 3y minus 2, not 3x. Okay, now we add 2 on both sides. So we will have 7x plus 2 is equal to 3y. Now we will divide each individual term by 3. And we will have 7/3 x plus 2/3 is equal to y. Now we have to write this as the inverse function of f of x. We know y represents f of x, so we'll write as f inverse of x is equal to this 7/3 x plus 2/3. And that is our inverse function. Now, we go here to b. We'll do the same thing. We have y is equal to 2x plus 5. We'll switch to x and y. And then now we solve for y. We subtract 5 on both sides. And x minus 5 is equal to 2y. We divide each individual term by 2. So this will give us 1/2 x minus 5/2 is equal to, actually that's supposed to be y. It's equal to y. Okay, so now we need to rewrite this as g the inverse of x. So it'd be g inverse of x is equal to 1/2 x minus 5/2. And that is the final answer to 15b. Now, we scroll down here to 16. It says state the inverse function. We have log 81 of x, and the inverse is 81 to the x power. Now, the inverse of g of x of 7x is just g. Well, actually, I should have wrote this as k inverse of x is equal to 81 to the x. And this would be g inverse of x is equal to log 7 of x. And that is the final answer for A and B. Now we come here to 17. It says a function is drawn below. Sketch an accurate graph of the inverse of f on the same axis. Include appropriate points. Okay, so what we could do is this here. Let's go off to the side. Let's do our x and y. Okay, so first of all, this would be -3, -2. Then we will have -2, -1. We will have -1, 0. And let's pick this point here. We will have, what's that, 4, 2. Now this is f, well, we just say f of x. Now we want the inverse. Now remember, the inverse, you're just switching the x and y values. So what we would do is our x would be -2, then -3, -1, -2, 0, -1, and then 2, 4. So what I did was all of our y values became our x's, and all of our x values became our y values. So we will plot those points. We have -2, -3, which is here. Then we have -1, -2, which is here. Then we have 0, -1. And we also have 2, 4. And so we have graphed this function. So I took the liberty of connecting these points to give us an accurate graph here. So now we scroll down to our next problem, which is problem 18. It says the percentages of total CEO pay made up by stock options for various years are listed in the table below. Let P equals F of T represent the percentage of total CEO pay made up by stock options at T years since 1950. Now, what we first must do here is this. We need to first determine these years. Since everything is since 1950, we know this would be 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, and 51. This would be our L1. And our L2 would be our percent. If you notice with our percent, it's going up by +3. So it says, A, find a linear equation for P equals F of T using regression. Give 2 decimal places. And then B, find an equation for the inverse of F by hand. And it says give 3 decimal places. So we need to put this in our calculator and find the linear regression. Now, after you put these values in your calculator, you will get this as your linear regression model. Now what we want to do is find the inverse of F by hand. And they want us to give 3 decimal places. Now, basically, we will make this y is equal to 3.91t minus 143.68. And we'll switch to y and t. So t is equal to 3.91y minus 143.68. Now remember, we want to get y by itself. So we will add 143.68 to both sides. So we have t plus 143.68 equals 3.91y. And we will divide each side by 3.91, or each individual term. And we will have y is equal to, now we have to put this in our calculator. And of course, this is an approximation. So what we would get is approximately 0.256t plus 36.747. Now we have to write this proper. So I'm going to write this over here. So we'll write it as F inverse of t is equal to 0.256t plus 36.747. And this is our answer for B. Now we go here to see, it says find f of 58 using a model from part A. What does it mean in this situation? So what we need to do is substitute in 58 for t. So we know we had f of 58 is equal to 3.91 times 58 minus 143.68. Now, after we substitute these values in, we get the value $83.1. Now, what this means is, now this is 83 years. Well, actually, this is 58 years from 1950. And this is our answer, which is our percent. So, in 2008, about 83.1% of total CEO pay will be made up of stock options. Now it says find the inverse of 58 using a model from part B. What does it mean in this situation? So if we use the model from B, we would just have F inverse of 58 is equal to 0.256 times 58 plus 36.747. Now when we substitute in these values, we get so we get 51.50. So that means that 58% of CEO